Girlfriend, have you ever wondered about the do's and don'ts of communication? Well, we're going to get to the bottom of that in today's video. We'll see you on the other side. Hey there, Grace. How you doing, girl?
Good. How are you, Ingafay?
Oh, I am super excited to have you here today. And I wanted to introduce you to my audience. But before we get into the do's and don'ts of communication, we want to get into your business, girl. Tell us a little bit about you, what you do, who you serve, and how you serve them.
Well, first I want to say thank you, Ingafay, for allowing me to be on your podcast show. It's just a great opportunity. So thank you for allowing me to be here. So, as an Asian American, I grew up with my traditional Chinese parents, and I was taught to be quiet and that my duty was just to obey the rules and just to follow what authorities said. And perhaps your audience have been taught the same way as well. So my passion is to help introverted women to be able to speak up, speak their truth, and embody their feeling of worthiness by overcoming stagnant communication syndrome and clearly communicate without anxiety, fear, or over-explaining so that they can have better relationships and more successes in their careers.
So you work with introverted women as well, which I'm so excited to have you here to talk about communication. So tell us, in your dealings with, introverted women or just really people in general, what are the 4 communication styles?
Right. So the 4 communication styles are the fireball, the nurture, the diplomatic, and the humorous. And you might be wondering, or your audience might be wondering, well, why is that important? Well, if I can, I like to share with you my story. So I'm very much of a nurturer, which means that I like to provide support and guidance. And I was working as a speech language pathologist way back when, and I was traveling with my husband. My husband, traveled with me and all that. And I was getting ready to finish up one assignment and getting ready to start a next assignment. Well, I can clearly say that my husband, he was supportive. However, his communication style is not that of a nurturer. So we were having one of these big, deep discussions, because it was getting to the tail end, and it was just getting really to be really kind of stressful, finishing up one and getting ready for the next assignment. And during one of our big, deep discussions, and it was getting just really serious and, and really heavy, my husband decided to draw a picture of me with devil horns. Yes, I can see some of your reaction going, oh, what? What did he do?
Yeah, I can only imagine.
So, so he drew a picture of me with devil horns and put it up on the cabinet. And the next picture he put up on the cabinet was a picture of himself with tears running down his eyes, snot running down his nose. Okay?
Oh, wow.
And so what he was communicating to me was that if you don't stop being the devil here, we're not going to be able to continue to have a constructive conversation. So I have to say, when I saw the picture of the devil horn and, all that, I busted out laughing, okay? Because I understood that my husband's, his communication style is that of a humorist. Now, had I not understood that, if I didn't understand my husband's communication style, seeing a picture of me with devil horns kind of appears to be insensitive, right? Because here I'm trying to be, providing the support and the guidance, and, I'm taking this thing seriously, of getting us ready to finish and start. And here he drew a picture of me with devil horns. Really? Right? But because I understood his communication style, he was saying to me, listen, if you don't stop being this heavy, doomsday type of person, we're not going to be able to get anything accomplished. So Using his humorous communication style, then I was able to pivot. And I knew okay, keep it a little lighter, still provide the support, but it's not all doomsday.
Right.
The fireball. So I just now explained the two, the me as the nurturer and my husband as the humorous. And the other communication style would be the fireball and the diplomatic.
Okay, got it. Okay.
And you can recognize the fireball because the fireballs, they are so passionate, right? They're so motivated and they want to help you to get the results. So you'll see them like going, yes, you can do it. You've got this. They're fired up and they want to help you to be fired up to get the results that you want. And then the diplomatic, they're the ones that tend to be like, hey, I have this idea. And what are your opinions? What are your thoughts? What are your ideas as well? So they are open to hearing what others have to share because what they want is to take the best of the decision making to make it a really good choice for not only the person, but also perhaps a person that they are talking with or communicating with. So as much as they want to share their idea with a person, they're also allowing the other person to make his or her own choices and opinions and everything as well to determine what is the best course of action. So just to know, there are no good or bad communication styles, right? Each have its strength, each has its weaknesses. So there's no good or bad communication styles. It's just who you are, and then using that and then understanding your communication styles. And when you understand what other communication styles are there, when you encounter these type of people, then you'll start to say, oh, perhaps this person is not trying to be insensitive, like my husband, the humorist, right? Or this person's not trying to be overly aggressive, or, so you kind of understand where they're coming from.
Okay, so cool. So does that mean that as an introvert, we could be any of these four? Or do introverts have different communication styles?
Yeah, so even as an introvert, you can have any of these communication styles because what it comes down to is a lot of it has to do with what motivates you, like within yourself. What do you tend to be motivated by? Are you motivated by results or by relationships or having that peace and calm, or more of that humorous, enjoying the life kind of a person? And also the motivation can come from, external, like, from your background, what you've learned, your experiences, all of that starts to mold you a bit of, then what kind of motivates you and what you're looking for. So yes, and you can also have a combination of these communication styles too. So, you don't necessarily only just have one. You can be, say, a nurturer and a humorist, right? Or you can be the fireball and the diplomatic.
Okay.
You can have a lot of these different combinations because it all depends on what motivates you. And you have a couple of ways that, you might be motivated by this, by, results, and you might be also motivated by having fun, or, and it also, again, can come from within you, from your experiences, from your background, culture.
Okay, so I'm curious. So now that you've given us these four different communication styles, can't talk today, how do they butt heads as far as when you're communicating? It sounds like when you gave us the story about you and your husband communicating, it sounded like you guys knew each other. I don't know if a person that didn't know the other person, how they would have reacted if that person did the same thing as your husband did. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we'll just go through each of the styles, okay? So we have the fireball. And again, the fireball are the ones that are very passionate, right? They want to help you to get results. However, sometimes they might sound a bit aggressive, right? Their tone of voice, or they might be like, you need to do this, or get this done, or, they might use a certain words or that tone of voice or certain body language that seems like they're aggressive or very forceful. And so some people are like going, oh, for some people they might be like going, why are you mad at me?
Right.
And so it kind of like you might be taken aback. But if you understand that, hey, they might be a fireball, then you can understand like, oh, maybe that aggression is not so much like they're angry at you. They're just trying to push you, and perhaps they're just not doing it in a way that you wanted it to be done. So you can tell them, you can certainly say, hey, I know like you're very passionate, you wanted to help me here, but that tone of voice just doesn't sound right to me, or that tone of voice makes it sound like you're angry with me. Can we tone it down a bit, right? And then with the nurture, like I said, with nurture, we love to provide guidance and support and everything. But then again, we might be very smothering because we don't want the person to make mistakes, right? We want the person to have like an easier path, because we perhaps made our own mistakes and we want to try to avoid that from happening with somebody else. So we're like, you don't want to do this, you want to do that. And we might provide a lot of the rationale for why they need to do X, Y, and Z. And it just feels very smothering.
Yes, my son calls that a helicopter person.
Right?
Typical mother, I'm trying to look out for his best interests, and he's like, oh, you're being a helicopter mom. So yeah, I totally get it.
Right? So we know then, okay, maybe we just need to back off a little bit, right? We need to allow that person space to have some of their own experiences. Sometimes we just have to say, okay, let's just give you, I already explained, why you need to do X, Y, and Z, but if you are aware of certain situations that can come up and you feel like you can handle it, then okay, I'll just back off a little, right? And then with the diplomatic, because with the diplomatic, they are open, right? They're open to sharing their own thoughts, opinions, ideas, and they're also willing to hear other people's thoughts, opinions, and ideas, and allowing the space for the person to make his or her own decisions as far as what they want to follow. Sometimes with a diplomatic, it almost feels like they have so many options that sometimes they don't really know like a clear path to take.
So overwhelmed,
right? So sometimes they can be kind of overwhelmed, and then they kind of get stuck, and then they really sometimes don't maybe not necessarily know which way to go.
Okay.
Right? So that would be the diplomatic. And then you have the humorous. Like I said, my husband's a humorist. And so with the humorous, like they want to include everyone. They want to have the joy. They want to feel like, everything is going great. And then when it gets to be too heavy or too deep, sometimes they throw in a little bit of a joke or throw in a little bit of a funny story to lighten up the mood. But if it's not done in the right way, they may appear that they're being insensitive.
Right.
Which is not really the case. So, it's not so much they're trying to be insensitive. It's just because in order for them to stay engaged, they might need to just have that little bit of a lightheartedness to be able to still continue. But sometimes because of how they do it, it might just appear to be insensitive.
So when this happens, when you have a communication style clash, what do people do?
So what people can do is they can first use the power of I statements, right?
Okay.
A lot of the times we tend to maybe give up our control and say, you made me feel this way, or you did this, right? Where we're giving the control to the other person. We can maintain control in our conversations, in our communication. So one of the things is if you feel like somebody's doing something and you're just not comfortable with it, just say, I think that, I understand, you want to keep things light. I need you to right now stay focused with me and just not make a joke right now. Or you can say, I know that you're trying to be supportive and provide guidance. I can handle this, or I can handle what comes my way.
So when that kind of thing is done, does that normally resolve? I guess that's why you're using the I statements, because you're putting it on yourself and you're not being accusatory. Is that why that works?
That's correct. That's correct. Because you're also then being in control of the situation. You're, again, when we put the you, then we're giving away the control. We're giving the control to the other person by saying you. What we want is we want to bring the control back to us. A lot of the times when communication breaks down, right? A lot of times we say, oh, you did something. You made me feel you. And then we feel like we're not in control of the situation. So if we want to feel like we're in control of the situation, then we need to take our power back. And we take our power back by using I. Listen, I know you want to support me. I know that, this is important to you as well. I want you to help me to figure out how we can proceed. So having these power phrases, I want us to figure out a way to proceed with X, Y, and Z.
Yes, I absolutely love the part that you were talking about as far as making sure that you take your power. I mean, I think that's really important for people to have the power when they're in conversations and not give it away. So I absolutely love that. So when you think of communication, the communication styles, how does the human design play into that?
Okay, so the human design is more about who you are. All right, so when we came onto the earth plane, so to speak, right, we were born with a certain design, and that design is who you are. So there are basically 5 types of the human design. There's the reflector, projector, generator, manifestor, and manifesting generator. Okay. So each of those designs, they have their own strategies and authority. Now, because of the complexity of the human design, obviously I'm not going to be able to explain it all, because otherwise we'll be here for hours. And I don't know about you, but I think everybody only can pay attention to like maybe 20, 25 minutes, right?
Exactly.
So just know that with your human design, you have your authority strategies, and you have what we call open centers and closed centers. So the open centers are undefined, which means if you ever see your body graph, you'll see like white spaces. And then if you see the body graph and there's like some centers that are colored in, that means they're closed and they're defined. All you have to know is that even with your centers, if you know your human design, you can also incorporate your personality with it. So for example, I'm just going to use me as an example. I'm a manifesting generator, and I said that my communication style is mostly that of a nurturer. So as a manifesting generator, my authority is to respond, wait to respond, and my strategy is the solar plexus, if I'm saying that correctly. So that means that I have to wait for someone to invite me or ask me for advice. So I'm not a manifestor, because a manifestor can initiate. So if they were to offer advice, most likely the person will be able to accept it. But as a manifesting generator, I have to wait for the person to ask, like, hey, what advice or what opinions or what have you can you share with me? Because when I offer it, it's not going to be well received, or it's going to be like, I know what to do, it's okay, so it could be kind of frustrating, right? So, but if I wait for the person to say, hey, what advice would you give on this, or what, opinions, or what thoughts do you have? Then I wait for that and then share it, the person will go, oh, okay, yeah, I like that advice. So
it's basically the person that you are not giving unsolicited advice.
Correct. And I'm not initiating, because only a manifestor, their design is they can initiate. as a manifesting generator, and generators, we have to wait for the person to come to us,
With that said, that's still not a trait of an introvert, though. I mean, because the introvert could be any of the different human designs that you mentioned, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So then when that comes to being an introvert and thinking about the communication that you have with others, how does that play into that based on your design?
So again, you have your centers, so you really would have to look at what centers are opened, and then there are some questions that you can ask. So if you're wanting to share or you wanting to provide information, you can ask yourself, like, why is it this important for me to explain this or say something about this? Or perhaps if you want to share, but you're too afraid to share, what is it preventing you from doing so? Is it because you're trying to prove your worth, or is it because you're afraid of X, Y, and Z? And in looking at your human design, you can see what areas that perhaps you might be, kind of not consistent in, that prevents you from saying something, or maybe perhaps reacting in a certain way because of that open center.
Okay. And then also, I guess you also would have to take in consideration the person that you're communicating to know which way they accept the information as well.
Exactly.
Because if so it's kind of a two-way kind of thing. So you got to know thyself in addition to knowing the person that you're doing with. So with that said, what are some ways to kind of figure that out on the fly? Or do you have any methods to kind of figure that out on the fly?
Well, there's really not a certain method because it's with communication, right? It's all individualized. How you communicate and who you're communicating with can vary, right? Like right now you're talking with me. How you're talking with me might be different than how you talk to your son, right?
Exactly.
Or how you talk. So it all can be, very different, and it all depends on who you're struggling to communicate with. And we can look at a certain pattern, and we can look at, okay, why are you having difficulty communicating with this person? What is it that's causing that feeling of stuckness, so to speak, right? I can help you kind of tailor it to say, okay, maybe it's because this person has this center open or closed or what have you, that you're gathering either from their energy or they're giving voice to your energy, right? Because sometimes, when you hear somebody say something to you, it's not coming from them. It might actually be coming from your own energy yourself, and they're just giving voice to your energy, and perhaps you're just not really ready to confront it yet. Like, it's there, but you're not ready to face it face on.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I know you had mentioned that you had some kind of quiz or something that you wanted to share with the audience. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So if you are wanting to know your unique communication style, you can actually find that quiz. It's a free quiz on my website, gracesolutions.com. Just answer some questions, and then it'll tell you what your communication style is, and then you also can download a report about your communication style.
So I'm just curious, if just to sum up everything that you said, what would be some key things that you would want the folks watching to implement or really hone into when it comes to communication, do's and don'ts?
Well, one of the things is everybody wants to feel important, right? Yes. So when you're talking to someone, make sure that you're actually paying attention to the person, right? So if somebody wants to speak with you, don't be talking on the phone or texting while you're talking to the person, right? Just same way when somebody's coming to you, make sure you're not on the phone. So two-way street. Be in each other's space of eye contact, paying attention, and not be distracted by the phone or TV or what have you, right? Video games.
Right.
And then the other is know that there's energy in communication. Communication is not just an exchange of information. There's energy involved in communication. You know, the words you speak, the body language, facial expressions, tone of voice, because we all have our stories. We all have our, you know, history, experiences, traumas, all of that. And so some certain words that we might hear or some that we use that somebody hears from us may trigger them, or the tone of voice or body language. So just realize that everybody has that perspective. And so if someone says to you like, hey, why did you say that? Or, you know, why did you use that tone of voice with me? Right? Just, you know, instead of saying like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about, or what was it that I said? Instead of like just kind of brushing it off, again, everyone wants to feel important. So you can ask them like, oh, what was it, the word that I said that made you feel like I wasn't supporting you? Or what did my tone of voice sound to you just right now? You know? And then be willing to listen and then make the change, right? Pivot so that you use the word that perhaps they prefer you to use, so that they feel supported. Or if they say something about your tone of voice, then change it in a way so that they feel supported.
Yes, that's powerful. And thank you for sharing that, because it's more than just listening with our ears. You're so right. We listen with our heart. We listen with our body. All of that plays into exactly how we communicate with one another.
Right.
Well, girl, this has been a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much for your time, as well as your wisdom and the value that you provided my audience. And for those of you that are watching, thank you for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you, Ingafay.